الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, we are going to discuss again some of the events that took place in the month of Muharram. In the earlier video, we discussed the the significance of Hijrah and why Hijrah is so important, and why the Muslims start their year, the calendar year, uh, the with the Hijrah, and what took place, and why did the Prophet make Hijrah, and all of the reasons behind them, and and some of the myths that are there. One of the most important things, dear brothers, uh, uh, with Hijrah is also to understand that in this month, every single event that happened in this month, it it is to show to the Muslims uh, the resistance against oppression. If you look at Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ is looking to establish a state in order to provide justice to the people, and to stand against the oppression of the of Kuffar Quraysh, and to bring justice to humanity. That was Hijrah, and that's the importance. Again, standing up against oppression, standing up against those who call themselves and take the role of the ruler, which is of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, ruling itself. The other event that we see also happening in this month was which we called Ashura, and the Muslims, they fast. Uh, and the reason for that fast is that the Yahud, the Muslims of that time, were freed, right, because of the work of Musa alayhi salam, and Allah Azza wa Jal wanted it, so they were freed from the oppression of Fir'aun. And also we see in the same month the story of Karbala, the story of Hassan Hussein, the sacrifice of Hussein and Hassan, the family of the Prophet ﷺ, what happens to them, and the kind of stands that they take against those who were taking the right which did not belong to them. This is something that we, the Muslims, are to learn today. Because if we look at the Muslim world, if we look at what is happening in the world, that the level of oppression, at the level of corruption, and the way the blood of innocent people is being spilt in the name of democracy, or the name of capitalism, and in the name of bringing justice, while all of it that we know is all in order for the interest of sometimes the Western states or their puppet states. This is something very clear. Most of the Muslims, they understand it, and those who don't understand are still maybe sleeping, or they don't want to discuss it. But it's very clear that the Muslim Ummah wants to be free from the oppression of capitalism and the oppression of democracy. And before it was capitalism, there were those who followed communist school of thought, and they wanted to spread communism in the Muslim world and across the world. It was the Muslims that fought it off, and now the capitalists are doing the same. And this is why the events in this month is so important, that we gain the right lessons, was because this month in reality, dear brothers and sisters, is a month of sacrifice, and to learn how our forefathers sacrificed for the sake of Islam, and to implement Islam, to bring back Islam, and against oppression and against suppression. We know the story of Fir'aun, and the kind of oppression that he put, and the way he ruled on Bani Israel, and how all of the strategies and his tactics were to make sure that there is no one from amongst Bani Israel that will be born, or that will come up, that is daring enough, that is willing in order to work to free his people from the oppression from the hands of Fir'aun. And that his tactics was to make sure, and that's one of the reasons he orders the killing of the firstborn, for instance, that we know from the Quran, from the Sunnah, that the kind of things that he was doing to make sure that uh, there is no way of for the people of for the Muslims or Bani Israel at the time to free themselves from the chains from of the of Fir'aun. One of the other things that is very significant here, brothers and sisters, is also the mindsets, the thinking. If the people themselves don't want to be free, no matter who comes to free them, they will not be freed. It is very important that the Muslims understand and go back to Quran and the Sunnah and realize what kind of mentality is it that Quran wants to build, the Sunnah wants to build. We know, for instance, it's a very good statement from Harriet Tubman. She was an individual that used to take slaves who wanted to be free. She would take them and she would take them to the Underground Railway, and free them. And one of the things that she says is that she would have freed thousands more if they knew that they were slaves. If they knew that they were slaves. And this is the problem with many of the Muslims that still who don't want to understand and realize that all of the systems other than the system given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is slavery, it's taghut. It is not going to give us any freedom. It is not going to give us, there will be no development and free thinking or all of those things that the Muslims are looking for in order to be a free nation, in order to be free people. None of this can happen as long as we continue to ask for a system that is not by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it is by a human being. So that's another issue that we have to understand. The Bani Israel, a lot of the stories, that a lot of the things, the events that we see in that time span, that how many signs were sometimes even before the actual the freedom took place, where they are actually marching with Musa alayhi salam to free themselves. You see many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed them many signs, but Bani Israel were not willing yet. They didn't have still the confidence that they can do it, that they can be free, that they can be rulers, that they can be once again rewrite the history of the Muslim world or their own history. It will not be foreign entities or foreign imperialists would be writing their history. No. And in all of this, there is also tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dear brothers and sisters, yes, many times we see all of these events taking place, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or Somalia or Afghanistan or Pakistan, or all of these places that we're seeing the Muslims being oppressed the way they are by all types of Western states. The same way, if you look at what Musa alayhi salam, when he's taken his people to a point where now they are standing in front of an ocean and behind them there is an army, the most powerful army of the time, and in front of them there is ocean. Confusion, where to do, what to do, where to go. Where do we go? We go forward, we will jump in the ocean and we will die. We go backwards, the army of Fir'aun will get rid of us. The reason for this was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted them to understand is until and unless you put all of your trust in me, nothing is going to happen. Until you put all of your trust in me. And this is what happens where Musa alayhi salam, he says, the famous that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will guide me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then asks Musa alayhi salam, he tells Musa to strike with the stick in the water, and we know the rest. But that was to bring back the mindset of Bani Israel back to Allah Azza wa Jal, that everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything. What you think is impossible becomes possible when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it. but Allah wants you to trust in Him. Allah wants you to come back to Him. Allah wants you to come back to the Quran and the Sunnah and to work for His deen, not to work for the interest of those who have no love for the Muslim Ummah or for Quran and Sunnah. We actually see the opposite, where we constantly see any Muslim who's asking the Muslims, who's asking that let's go back to Quran and Sunnah, let's go back, implement the rules of Allah Azza wa Jal the way He wants us to. You see them being called names, whether it's an extremist, whether it's a terrorist, whether it's this, whether it's that, even though it is an ideological work, even just the work of ideas, to spread ideas, that itself is being called in all kinds of names. So dear brothers and sisters, we can see those who are in this field, those who are working day and night in order to work for this deen, they see it very clearly that all of the other systems they do not have the real, they cannot stand in front of the ideas of Islam. They cannot stand in front of the concepts that are being presented by Islam. They know that they cannot fight it. So they are using now every way and are becoming desperate in order to do whatever they can in order so that Islam does not become dominant. And of course, we know that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one to whom the power and the order belongs to. And as Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, and وَاللَّهُ بَالِغُ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Most of the people, the final word, the order belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but majority of the people, they don't understand it. So dear brothers and sisters, one of the things that I would ask is to start reading, go back to read at the events of this month, what happened, fast, if you can fast on the days that are recommended to fast, sunnah to fast, and understand what it is, the actions that the Muslim Ummah needs to take place, need to take in order to free ourselves from the shackles of the chains of Fir'aun of today, and in order to be free nation once again. وجزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.